Welcome to Hunter Beyond Time and Space Chapter 4. 4. More than 1. Countdown to return, 47 hours 59 minutes and 58 seconds. Countdown to return, 47 hours 59 minutes and 57 seconds. Have you traveled through? So the end of the countdown is the passage to another time and space, while the countdown to return refers to the time to go back. Thinking of this, Qing Chen breathed a sigh of relief. It was a good thing to be able to go back. Although no one over there might care about him, his mother had a new life and was too busy to think about him. As for his father, he should be in prison. So he probably wouldn't care about him either. But even so, he still wanted to go back and take a look. And now, what he had to do was to live well in these 48 hours. So, it's the first day of the countdown. Qing Chen began to re-examine this new world in front of him. When the world came back together again, Qing Chen saw the prison uniform on his body and instantly understood his situation. He was in a gray and gloomy room, completely sealed off except for an alloy gate full of technological sense. The 90-centimeter wide door had a small window, but it was closed now. The cell was a single room with only a bed in it, covered with a thin sheet. There was also a shelf next to it, but it was empty except for a blanket, a toothbrush, and a towel. The walls of the cell were gray, but what Qing Chen couldn't understand was that these gray walls were emitting a metallic luster under the faint light outside. Metal wall. Qing Chen sat up and touched the wall, wondering where this kind of building material that cost a fortune would be used. Obviously, this was no longer the world he had known before. He quickly looked down at his palm, and the fingerprint on his hand was exactly the same as his old self's, even the position of the pores on his hand was exactly the same. This was his own body. After traveling to this world, the bone-cutting knife in Qing Chen's hand was gone, and his original clothes were gone, but his body was indeed his own. Fingerprints and pore positions couldn't be faked. Qing Chen sat on the bed with his knees hugged, looking at the heavy alloy gate, not knowing what he was thinking. Slowly, there was a commotion outside the door, and there was even someone pounding on the alloy prison door with force. Qing Chen slowly walked to the door, trying to stick to the door to hear what was being shouted outside. But before he could hear it clearly, the alloy door made a clear pneumatic sound and opened. He looked outside, and there was a circular corridor outside the door. There were 7 levels in this square prison fortress, and each level had neatly arranged cells. In this vast and huge prison fortress, only sporadic lights were lit, and the open alloy doors led to dim cells, like beasts locked up inside. Qing Chen stood at the door, and it seemed that if he took this step, he would walk towards an unknown life. Suddenly, a pleasant female voice came from the broadcast somewhere in the vast prison. "It's 7 o'clock in the morning, breakfast time. All prisoners please line up and go to the cafeteria to eat." The voice echoed in the prison fortress, but Qing Chen still stared at the threshold in front of him. It seemed that everything would be different as soon as he stepped out. In fact, he felt that he had been different from a certain moment. When did it start? Probably, when he thought he only had the last 2.5 hours of his life left, and so he did what he had always wanted to do but dared not do. He even reported his own father, so what else was he afraid to face? He stepped out of the cell. But the next moment he was stunned. In the narrow corridor outside, there was a prisoner standing in front of each cell door. Qing Chen's pupils contracted. An old man with a hunched back faced him, and in his eye sockets, there was a mechanical eye with a red light gleaming. The entire right eye socket was made of mechanical parts, and this metal part extended all the way to the right temple. The mechanical eye didn't look delicate, and it was even a bit rough, but for some reason, Qing Chen felt oppressed from the eye that was staring at him. It seemed that the other party was analyzing the details on his body. Just like he analyzed others with his memory. A middle-aged prisoner with a burly figure had his right arm completely made up of mechanical components. When he moved his fingers, Qin Chen could even hear the metallic sound of the mechanical parts turning. That sturdy metal arm was like twisted steel muscles, tough and violent. Half of the people in this entire prison fortress had mechanical limbs. Mechanical civilization. Qin Chen thought of these 4 words in his mind. Before he could continue thinking, the burly prisoner in the next cell smiled at him and said, "Hey, new guy, don't eat too much for breakfast, or it'll look ugly when you throw up." As soon as the words fell, there were many people laughing in the corridor. "I heard that 12 new people came yesterday, and they can have some fun today. This kid doesn't have any mechanical limbs on him, and it seems like he doesn't have any connections outside." When Qin Chen heard the words, "new guy," he was stunned, thinking that the other party knew that he had just traveled from Earth. But he quickly realized that this new guy referred to his recent arrival at the prison, and the other party probably didn't know he was an Earthling. Moreover, Qin Chen frowned and thought that the other party's so-called entertainment would probably be a disaster for him. But the problem was, how could he survive among these mechanical beasts? He restrained the restlessness and fear in his heart. As an ordinary high school student facing sudden changes, the only thing Qin Chen could do was to force himself not to show any strangeness. Because he didn't know what the consequences would be if his identity as a person from another world was exposed. Suddenly, a young man on the 4th floor across from them went crazy. "What is this place? I want to go home. I don't want to stay in this ghost place. Who are you people?" "I'm Huan Jixian, my dad is the chairman of the Luoqing Yongli group, stay away from me." As he spoke, the young man ran madly along the corridor. Others didn't move, standing still like they were watching a show, still in line to go to the cafeteria. Someone was confused. "Where is Luoqing?" Suddenly, there was a buzzing sound overhead, and Qin Chen looked up to find that 4 unmanned drones like iron boxes had detached from the ceiling and were falling down. Qin Chen's gaze stopped on the ceiling, where 18 Gatling-like 6-barrel turrets were embedded neatly in the alloy walls, hanging upside down. As that panicked young man ran along the corridor, 9 of the machine guns' muzzles were turning. "Please stop walking," a female voice came from the drone, warning again, "Please stop walking." Immediately afterwards, a female voice was broadcasted in the prison fortress, "All prisoners, stand by in place." In just over 10 seconds, the 4 unmanned drones blocked the teenager in a certain part of the corridor, and the muzzle of each drone was pointing at him. At the same time, 9 robots holding unknown firearms rushed in at full speed from the entrance of the prison fortress. The frightened teenager leaned against the wall, while Qin Chen coldly watched everything. The other party's behavior was a bit too extreme, but it helped Qin Chen understand a lot of information. Machine guns.